Hi, my name is Caitlin Johnson. I'm a student in Philosophy 226R, Philosophy of Film. This is my first short assignment. I picked the prompt that Christoph created a perfect world for Truman. In this essay, I will be arguing that Christoph did not create a perfect world for Truman. Rather, he created a world that robbed him from his freedom and made him a prisoner of Sea Haven Island. Christoph, director of the reality TV show, The Truman Show, broadcasted and scripted Truman Burbank's life to the entire world without Truman's recognition or approval. Christoph is the mastermind behind the scenes, and he manipulates what happens within the studio land of The Truman Show. Christoph scripted Truman's father's death while they were both out at sea. This later causes a fear of water for Truman, which completely surrounds Sea Haven Island. Christoph also controlled who Truman marries, even though he was in love with a different woman. Truman Burbank is a caged prisoner of Christoph. It is evident that Christoph created a world that was imperfect for Truman when Truman's father, Kirk, drowned and died. Early in the movie, Truman has a flashback to his father's death. The flashback shows Truman and his father out at sea in a boat. When Kirk says it's time for them to head back to shore, Truman begs for a few minutes longer and Kirk approves. Soon after, a massive storm occurs, rocking the boat uncontrollably. Kirk falls out of the boat, drowns, and does not resurface. This traumatic experience has caused Truman to develop a fear of water. As the film continues, viewers discover that Kirk's death was not an accident, it was scripted to happen. Christoph planned for this to happen to Truman's father so that Truman would never desire to go into the deep ocean ever again. Unfortunately for Truman, Sea Haven Island is completely surrounded by water, therefore he is trapped. This intentional plan ensured that Truman couldn't leave the island and remain a prisoner of Christoph and the Truman Show. Later on in the movie, Christoph scripts another aspect of Truman's life, his love interest. In college, Truman was interested in pursuing a relationship with a girl named Lauren. Anytime Truman tried to interact with her, something would get in his way, literally. While Truman was admiring Lauren from afar, a woman literally fell on top of him. This woman, named Merrill, was hired to be Truman's wife. Of course, Truman had no idea about this, and he and Merrill began dating. Although Truman and Merrill were dating, he was not very interested in her and continued to dream about Lauren. Flashing forward, Truman saw Lauren again while studying in the library one night, and they ran to the beach together. They embraced one another, and Lauren revealed to Truman that her real name is Sylvia. She tried to warn Truman and that he had been lied to his entire life and not to believe anyone. "You must listen. Everybody's pretending, Truman. You think this is real? It's all for you. A show. The eyes are everywhere. They're watching you right now." This was quoted by Sylvia in The Truman Show at 27 minutes. This is a quote made by Sylvia trying to expose the truth to Truman. She loves Truman and believes he deserves to know, unlike the other actors of Sea Haven Island. They're all frauds, and Christoph is the biggest one of them all. Moments later, a man claiming to be Sylvia's father drives onto the beach, taking her away from Truman. She claims she's never seen this man before and warns him one last time before she is taken away. The father says that they are moving to Fiji, and Truman never sees Sylvia again. Truman has decided he will someday get to Fiji to find Sylvia and be with her. Unfortunately, this entire situation was decided by the evil director, Christoph. The plan for the show was for Truman to be married to Merrill, not Lauren. Therefore, Christoph took the appropriate actions to ensure his plans for the show. Rather than Truman getting to decide who he truly wants to be with, Christoph once again took away his freedom and dictated who Truman will love. Now, someone who does not side with my argument may argue that Truman does in fact live in a perfect world that Christoph created for him. The entire purpose of The Truman Show is that the 24-hour, uninterrupted broadcast revolves solely around Truman. Truman does not experience any hardships or struggle in any way. Truman has a wonderful desk job, lives in a lovely neighborhood, has a loving wife, and friendly neighbors. Along with all these great points, most importantly, Truman is safe and protected in Christoph's eyes. Towards the end of the film, when Truman is attempting to leave, Christoph communicates with Truman for the first time ever. When Truman is questioning what is real in life, Christoph provides some reassuring words. "Listen to me, Truman. There is no more truth out there than there is in this world I created for you. Same lies, the same deceit. But in my world you have nothing to fear. I know you better than you know yourself." This was quoted an hour and 33 minutes into the movie. This quote of Christoph shares that he knows Truman is safe if he stays in Sea Haven Island with him. Christoph can manipulate everything that revolves around Truman, and he is telling him that he has nothing to be afraid of or to worry about in this world that he created solely for him. Kristoff is Truman's protector. To return my argument, I want to highlight that Truman only saw what Kristoff wanted him to see. Truman was led to believe that everything he sees before him is real, when in reality it's all false. As mentioned previously, Truman's father drowned and died during a terrible storm. One day, while Truman was on his way to work, he claims he saw his father. Kirk appeared to look really disheveled and was disguised as a homeless man. When Truman realized it definitely was his father, he approached him to embrace him. Immediately, a man and woman in the community took Kirk away on a bus that was leaving a nearby bus station. While this was happening, a large group of joggers ran in front of Truman so he could not reach the bus. Coincidence? Absolutely not. Kristoff's mischievous actions continue. Another situation occurs when Truman decides to fly to Fiji to search for Sylvia. Truman was determined to find Sylvia again and spend the rest of his life with her. He knew the only way to get her was to plan a trip to Fiji. Truman scheduled his flight with a travel agency in his community. The walls of the agency were plastered with propaganda posters of planes being struck by lightning and crashing into buildings reading, "This could happen to you." Truman also saw an episode that evening on TV that Kristoff aired to sway his opinion. It said, "Tonight's Golden Oldies is the enduring, much-loved classic, Show Me the Way to Go Home, a hymn of praise to small-town life, where we learn that you don't have to leave home to discover what the world is all about, and that no one is poor who has friends." This was quoted in The Truman Show at 38 minutes. Clearly, Kristoff was using propaganda schemes to ensure that Truman would no longer desire to travel to Fiji. If Kristoff has the power to control the weather in Sea Haven Island, he most definitely is able to control what Truman watches. He aired this episode and chose a scene just to end Truman's idea of going to Fiji altogether. Unfortunately, Truman never got to travel to Fiji because Kristoff strategically planned ways to disrupt his quest. As Kristoff states in the film, we accept the reality of the world which we're presented with. This was at 1 hour and 6 minutes. Truman thought his world was normal and that there was nothing else to discover. As he finds out in the end, there is a higher reality to discover outside of Sea Haven Island. Kristoff turned Truman's life into a complete lie and kept a normal lifestyle from him. In this essay, I argued that Truman was robbed from his freedom and made a prisoner of Sea Haven Island due to the world that Kristoff created. Kristoff, director of the reality TV show The Truman Show, broadcasted and scripted Truman Burbank's life to the entire world without his recognition or approval. Kristoff strategically planned Kirk's death, knowing that it would cause Truman to remain landlocked and not seek to ever leave. Kristoff also got involved in Truman's love life and controlled who Truman was going to marry and spend the rest of his life with, regardless of his desires for another woman. And lastly, Kristoff controlled what he wanted Truman to see, such as propaganda posters and commercials influenced him not to pursue a trip to Fiji, as well as distracting him when he spotted his father in public. It's clear to see that all these concrete reasons support that Truman lived in an imperfect world where he was deceived by everyone. Rather than having a life full of freedom and spontaneity, his entire life consisted of being a prisoner in his own world known as The Truman Show that was devised by the sinister Kristoff. Well, that wraps it up for me. Thank you for listening.